This Hangout on Air is live. Aloha, everybody. Michaela Kennedy here with startingmyownbusiness.org, which I realize I don't have my thing today. But anyway, I'm here with my dear friend, Jennifer Nearents. How are you today, Jennifer?
I am good, Michaela. Thank you. Yes, it's Jennifer Nearents with the Academy of Holistic Healing.com, and it's been, a typical fun start to our Hangouts, and I absolutely love it.
Um, Jennifer, I feel the need to ask you how how we're coming along on your future launch
Well,
for the I want to call it the Tao Hole because that's what it is, the Academy of Holistic Healing. And it's
yeah,
funny, I have you in my G plus circle. I never told you this. I have just you alone in a circle that is TAOHH. And I always look at it and go, how Tao. So I think of this academy as being the Tao. It's the Tao Academy.
well, not like,
So with all that, without that long belabored introduction, how are things going with it? And do you have any? Because I know a lot of people that are watching are starting to get excited, and I'm starting to get people asking me questions about it. That's why I'm
that's
turning around and asking
awesome.
you.
And remember that setup that I gave you prior to our Hangout starting?
Yes.
It is. I just got a knock on my door. So I am going to give you really brief, and I hate to do this, and I apologize
That's
profusely.
okay. Come back when you can. I'll explain to everybody. No worries.
Now, I'm going to take a second. I'm going to give you a brief rundown on what's going on, and then I apologize, but I'm going to have to bow out. Um,
Hope
we
you
have
can come
had a
back.
couple of, say again?
Hope you can come back.
I hope so too. We've had a couple of launches already. We've got the chakra class that is open for enrollment right now. It's going to be starting in October. I don't have a start date yet. I will by the end of today. Also, there is an anti-anxiety program that I have just created that is going to be launching in the next week as well. The membership, the free portion is open, and there's all sorts of amazing things in there. And the paid portion is just about ready to open up. We've got a couple of other things that we want to create before putting it in there so that people have lots to get started with. So that's it in a nutshell. We are starting to move forward. There are openings and possibilities for people to get involved and start learning more about what the Academy brings. And I'm really, really excited with what the next couple of weeks are going to make available to people, and just in time for getting on top of the pre-holiday yuck that happens, and I'm really excited about the way that that's happening. So, Michaela, I hopefully will be able to come back and join you in just a little bit. If not, people, you're in great hands. Michaela has got lots of amazing information for you today.
Aloha. Thank you so much, Jennifer. And
Thank you.
hope we do see you back, but enjoy.
Uh,
Yeah, it's very interesting that Jennifer was talking about the pre-holiday things. That's exactly what I was thinking about today when I was preparing for today's precept number 6. A lot of things come down on us without realizing it. Suddenly it is holiday time. We go into overwhelm. I went into a meeting today. It was a luncheon meeting, a workshop that we did. People were talking about overwhelm. They were talking about all the things that they had to do, and running a family, running the home, going out to work. People that had just lost their jobs or were searching for something new. There are a lot of people in flux right now. And overwhelm is something that it happens very easily to us, especially in this day and age. There's so much information thrown at us through the internet, through online, through all sorts of media, all sorts of responsibilities. what we're expected, what we think we're expected to, with self-imposed things that we put on ourselves. And this is part of what our 10 Precepts of Creativity is all about. We've been going back and talking about how to bring yourself back to balance, how to get yourself back into the creative flow. And before I get into today's the PowerPoint, the points that I have for you, I'd just like to mention about all of these things that come at us. And when we put a lot of emphasis on something, the universe ends up giving us a lot more of it. So we want to think about balance. We always want to think about balance. We talked about that last week. Balance within the driver's seat. You want to have balanced air in the tires, machine. And if you're constantly, if we constantly listen to the things going on in our head about, oh, I'm too much this, I'm too much that, whatever, believe it or not, because of the creative force that is within us, and every moment is a creative moment, we create more of that. We create more of that chaos. If we're buying into the chaos, we just keep producing more of it, because the universe, being the creative force that it is, says, oh, is that really what you want? Now keep in mind, when it comes to creativity, and what I'm going to do is, while we're talking here, is I want to go into the screen share and show you the 10 Precepts of Creativity that we've been talking about. All right? We use these. It's a lot more basic than people realize. And one of the funny things is, I do kind of miss Jennifer right now, because she often reels me in for the things to bring everything back to basics. What happens is, when you get really good at something, really, really good at something, maybe it's a sport, maybe it's an instrument or something, you start doing things without thinking, and it rolls with you, and then the challenges of going to the next level get very exciting for you, and the time it takes you to overcome a new level of advancement within the sport, within your writing technique, within whatever talent that you want to hone in on and to grow. You already know the basics, so you can run with them. You shorten the amount of time it takes to accomplish that new level, because you already have confidence, and you already believe, and you already can see yourself putting yourself into that point. What I just said a moment ago about missing Jennifer, though, is that Jennifer often brings me back to basics. In fact, we often do that when we have people around us. Think about the things that you're really good at and that you want to run with, but if there's somebody that you are working with that is coming from a different perspective, and everybody comes from a different perspective. We have 7 billion different minds on the planet, and 7 billion different attitudes as well, and perspectives. You're always going to get some clarity through the connections you have with other people, whether it be a partner, whether it be a business partner, a friend, somebody that you're working with, or even somebody that is your close friend, or even a spouse. You're going to get a different perspective. The point about those perspectives is that they keep bringing you back, they keep making you think. If it's a completely negative point of view, maybe you need to be confiding in other people. If it is a question that is coming out of not quite understanding the point that you're bringing out, we do tend to project ourselves onto what those people are thinking and believing, and then we start doubting ourselves. But instead of looking at it that way, we can take what somebody says, or questions, or ask for clarity on whatever our topic or our goal is at hand, and we can hone in on that and use those questions, use those those insights from other people as ways to better hone and better clarify our ideal, what our goal is. Every week we go back and we go through all of the creativity precepts, because each one of these, they all build on a foundation. And if you paid any, if you watched any of our or the series we did last spring on the 10 self-limiting beliefs and how to blast through them, you realize that Jen and I often go back and forth, and we often go back to earlier points. We review earlier points. That's what mastery is all about, is being able to grasp those foundations and use the foundations as your building blocks for wherever your goals are taking you. We know that there's a creative force permeating everything and every being in our universe. We know that energy collects, and it does continue. Nothing stays the same. The only thing that we can truly count on is change, because everything is a continuation. There is no such thing as birth per se, but yet another step in the continuation of a movement. Emotions and thoughts are ground zero. These are tools. The emotions and thoughts are the places that bring us back to where we to where our obstacles are and where our opportunities are. I want to stop right here for a minute and talk a little bit about creativity again, because in the very beginning, when we first started this series, I talked about creativity as the traditional definition of it is very artistically oriented. We think about some piece of art or some music, something that has been created as an original piece of art. So we tend to confuse creativity with art. Art is a part of creativity, but creativity is not solely owned by the artist. It's owned by everything. When you take a look, we're starting to get kind of deep into the creative precepts here. We've talked about the emotions, going back and using them as tools, using those tools to better know ourselves and to better fine-tune our machine to move forward. And when all of those things are set up, many other conditions happen, and they attract that support. I'll give you an example. I've been doing a lot of writing lately, and writing has always scared me. Decades ago, I used to think, I really hate writing, but I love having written. Well, now I have finally gotten to the point where I truly love the process of writing, but it's the goal that often gets in the way. Because keep in mind that everything about this world is looking for balance. Water seeks its own emotions. With every positive emotion, we have a negative emotion. And those positive emotions can also, if the pendulum can swing that far forward into ecstasy and bliss, it can also swing back that much into stress and pain. And if you are in stress and pain, you remind yourself that the pendulum can swing the other way and will swing the other way. You prepare yourself for what's going to come. It speeds that energy up as well. The precept of creativity number 6. It's about centering everything we've talked about, or balancing. You can use the word balance if you like, in order to trigger your self-actualization. Self-actualization, going right back to precept number 1, with creative force is everywhere. Every given moment is a movement towards some sort of self-actualization. That self-actualization is a little bit different than coming up with goals. The thing is, if you have a very lofty goal and you're working so hard and you're stressing yourself out so much to get there, keep in mind that there has to be a lot of energy behind that to move yourself into a goal. So of course it's going to be hard. So if you have a lofty goal, expect there to be a lot of rough times. That's where your balance comes in. You don't have to be putting out something great. You don't have to put out a great book or a great movie or create something really awesome to have had a meaningful life. It's about being centered, and it's about self-actualization. Because when you start to understand all of these precepts and start to work with them, with all the practices, with all the exercises, the daily exercises that we give you, these exercises, they move you toward a place of balance where you can recognize the flow as it's happening. You can recognize the attractions that are coming to you as you're in that place of balance. For example, someone may write a poem and may be a great, wonderful poem, but the person is not that poem. A person may not write anything. They might not write poems, but every time they open their mouth, they speak with poetry. They speak with some special essence that comes from a place of balance, that comes from the place of the heart, which makes you become the creative force. With centering, with balancing, with triggering those self-actualization exercises, you will find that it'll be much easier to drive your car, your vehicle. Your body is your vehicle, to drive your vehicle wherever it is you want to go. It's not about judging other people or judging things or listening to other people's criticisms, but finding out how we label ourselves and how to get away from those labels and start getting closer to our center, truer to our center. We need to allow ourselves to change. There are a lot of things that go on in our heads. Oh, I can't do that, or I've been telling myself, oh, all right, I got a confession to make. I've been talking about writing a book and publishing a book. I actually have published a couple of books now on dreams, and they are on Kindle. But then I got myself stalled, and I allowed myself to stall because I worried about about how people would take it, if people would accept it. I worried about whether or not I was a good enough writer, or whether or not anybody would even be interested in hearing what I have to say. Way too much self-absorption. We do. We allow our egos to get in the way, and our egos are big obstacles for us. They go right back to thoughts and emotions. We talk about the ego, and we talk about people having big egos or whatever. We talk a lot about people and their self-absorption. But when you stop and realize that everybody has got that self-absorption, we no longer have to worry about think. With 7 billion people on the planet, we can find our tribe. If we haven't found our tribe, it's perhaps we are out of our own place of balance. For somebody who works with these exercises every day, the breathing exercises, the centering, the balancing, to just stop and breathe and look at things, you start to take a different attitude toward your perspective on how you even react to emotions. For example, an exciting emotion, people get so wrapped up in it, they'll jump for joy and start screaming. For a very sad, mournful thing, people get very deep into despair and start crying and wailing. And I know people within my own family, and I'm sure I've done this myself, where you get so hooked on a negative idea and a negative story that you hone it for the best effect. Well, I don't know. Maybe that's just a lot of Irish storytelling. I don't know. But storytelling is okay as long as you know that you are telling a story, as long as you aren't buying into your own story. Think about whatever your creative goal is. Whatever it is that you're looking to be more creative within your work, if you want to create a new invention for technology, maybe it's a new software, it could be anything at all, an invention, a piece of art, whatever it is. When you don't let the little things get to you, when you start thinking about emotions and thoughts as tools rather than things that are true. When obstacles happen, when things get in the way, you don't get so upset over it. You bring yourself back to center, you breathe, you see, hey, there's a big ass problem and I'm going to find out how to solve it. You start looking for the opportunities within your problems. And what ends up happening is, with your centeredness and with your attention to mindfulness, whatever your goal is ends up becoming the byproduct. You yourself become self-actualized through your actions. And it gets to the point where it's not just one book. I've heard so many people say, oh, if only I had that one bestseller. And you're talking about people who you can't even get to write an email to you. I used to be one of those people. I know very well. If you just had that one break, if I could just get that one good ticket from Powerball, I could win. Always looking for that one. That right there is self-limiting belief. And it triggers emotions when you think like that. There's a wistfulness, there's a feeling that it won't happen, and suddenly, through all of these thoughts, the heavier energy starts to creep in. And the more power you give to the thoughts as to who you really are, the less chance of your actualizing your goal. It's a matter of allowing yourself to change. We label ourselves. We put a label on ourselves. I've talked about a number of different labels in the last 10 minutes. But we grow out of those labels. I used to call myself a techno-idiot. And then I spent years just playing around with the computer. I think 20 years ago, I hated the computer. I didn't want to have anything to do with it. And if I had hung on to that label and that attitude, I probably wouldn't be here talking with you today. So it's a matter of being willing to become aware, become mindful of what labels we've given ourselves, and finally letting them go, because they aren't truly who we are. For somebody who is self-actualized, who really brings their mind to center and works toward this balance and this greater awareness, nothing is trivial and nothing is great either. Everything just becomes sacred, it becomes beautiful, it becomes holy. Now, whatever you do, it doesn't really matter. Well, in fact, it does really matter. Every moment matters. Every moment is an ultimate concern because we only have so much time down here. We have this one opportunity down here. So really nothing is trivial. You know, a person that is very mindful will look at the tiniest thing, like stepping forward during a walk, being very mindful with each step. If you observe a Buddha, you'll see that he walks and he loves walking. You'll see that the places where he used to sit under the Bodhi tree and meditate, and you'd see if you go to that place where the Bodhi tree is, his steps have been marked. He'd meditate for an hour, and then he would walk around the tree. And he would sit, and then he would walk. And then he would walk with a serene attitude, as if he were in meditation. I'm talking a lot about meditation during the series. A lot of people who are watching this, many of you, maybe you've never meditated before. Meditation is part of the creative process. I think a while ago I talked about, I remember mentioning Albert Einstein. He didn't really like the word meditation. He thought it had too much of a kind of a foo-foo kind of word back in the early part of last century. It was not something that many people were doing. So he recoined it with a more scientific term. He called it the hypnagogic state. He worked very hard every day to clear his mind, and one of the processes of clearing his mind was to sit in a seat. He didn't trust himself to wake up and bring himself out of the meditation, out of that state. So he had to find a way to wake himself up. And the time was always a little bit different. It ended up being anywhere from 15 to 20 minutes typically, sometimes longer, sometimes shorter. But what would happen is that at some point he would start falling off to sleep. At that point, the metal balls that he'd be holding in his chair on his lap, his hands would fall off his lap, the balls would hit a pan on the floor, and they'd wake him up. And he would rush over and write in his journal, because that hypnagogic state, the theta brainwave that we talk about, is a place where that's where the thoughts are created. That's where the creative force starts to be triggered. And the better we trigger it, just like a sport, learning a new technique to advance yourself in a sport, this is the same thing with meditation and creativity. When you can reach that point where you can grasp yourself, where you're still in a place of awareness, but complete balance and centering, that's where you begin to self-actualize. That's where the energy starts to blossom, and then it reaches out. It reaches out the way a plant reaches out for the sun. Our own desires and our own creative juices reach out to weave together with other creative forces. And I'll give you a good example for that. Just today, I woke up talking about writing earlier. Right now I love writing, but I've been holding myself back. There's a goal that I have with a couple of special books that are so close to my heart that I've allowed myself to get a little paralyzed with it. So today I met a few different authors. I had lunch in a group of people that were talking about authorship, about their books. I had a good friend of mine a few days ago give me the manuscript to her book, which is a really wonderful book. She and I are quite close in our writing styles, so I enjoyed reading her book, and I was thinking about my own and how easy it would be for my own words to flow on the page like this too. And then as I was about to leave the lunch, who walks in but a fairly well-known publisher, a local publisher. And we start talking about books, and we start talking about things, and I could see his eyes light up because there aren't that many people who know about the marketing aspect, the business of writing books. And as I was coming back here to start this today's hangout, I realized that this is where all of the precepts are starting to come in. I've just gone back to show you Precept Creativity number 4, going right back to number 4. When conditions are set up, other conditions are automatically attracted in support. I've been working very hard all summer with the emotions and thoughts, making them ground zero. That Precept of Creativity number 3, it keeps bringing me back. I continue to write in a journal and do the morning pages to bring me back to center. When all those conditions are set up, and I'm realizing sometimes they're already set up for you and you don't even realize it. And that's where we need to keep going back to our mindfulness, because very often we already have the power to do all this stuff, but we're not, the trust is not there. So just the fact that you would read these precepts will bring that information back into you and show it to you. I can hear somebody in there. There she is. I'm just checking to see if you're here. I could hear you. I'm so glad to have you back. But because it's so funny when you're doing the stuff. And I'm going to did I do this? I'm going to stop the screen sharing for a second. I don't know what I just did there. There we are. Okay, I just want to stop. I'll go back to it in a minute. But it's so funny when you get used to doing things with a partner and everything flows and you have that other person to keep you in check. You realize how important a team is. Because if you try to put all these things into place on your own, if you have done it and you're good at it, and you've had a lot of practice doing that, it happens. But just like anything, when you're starting to do something and you're starting to really get the wheel going, it's like, well, I know I can ride this bike, but I don't want to take those training wheels off. And I don't know how long you've been here or not, Jennifer, but there are a lot of things that we have talked about all summer long that just kept coming up, and I kept going back today and I'm going to go right back into the screen share for a moment and show you. Kept going back to number 4. Number 4, when conditions are set up, other conditions are automatically attracted in support. We don't stop and realize what an amazing Cadillac we are driving with our bodies, with our lives, and that we have so many. When you go back, you keep reminding yourself, Precept of Creativity number 1, where that creative energy force permeates every single thing and being. And it's all about the mindfulness. It's all about the mindfulness, bring ourselves back into this. And when we do become aware and we realize that we can go for a creative, some great goal, whether it's a business goal or overcoming an obstacle like weight loss or some addiction or no matter what it is, it's all creative force, all of it. And it goes back to the idea that if you have a great project that you want to do, beating yourself up over it is not going to help you any. Also realizing that within this balance, within all the precepts that we've been doing, everything seeks balance. We are always seeking balance. The world is always seeking balance. We have it with night and day, with sun, moon. We can go on and on and on, male, female, you name it. We have all of these things as balance. And a lot of people say, well, how does that fall into, if I want to target, and I want to laser target this goal that I want to do. For example, I want to have a successful book launch, or I want to have a successful business, or I want to lose 100 pounds, whatever it is. It's a matter of looking at the balance and realizing that we are not the goal. If you accomplish whatever your goal is, you've accomplished the goal, but you are still not the goal.
Right.
When you, just before you I don't know if you heard, did you hear me talk about the poetry?
No.
A poem. Somebody can write an incredible poem, but that doesn't make you the poem.
Correct.
It takes a lot of effort to do that, and maybe a lot of struggle, and especially to launch something and to get everything out there. And if you expect to reach that strong and that intense a goal, you have to take all of the struggles, all of the obstacles, and everything else that goes along with it as part of the course, because that's what the balance is. Mm-hmm. When you bring yourself back, just a second, I'll finish this one thought. But when you bring yourself back into the balance, that mindful walk, and I mentioned also a little while ago, Jennifer, before you were in here, how important it is for me personally to have you here, because you always do bring me back to basics. We bring ourselves back to basics because that's what a master is, somebody who masters the basics. We become, everything that we say becomes poetry. Everything that we say, we recognize that creativity that we have in putting my hands up and waving to you, and how creative that is.
Oh, wow.
So it's realizing that there are no lost opportunities. Everything is, once we become a self-actualized person, we realize that that final goal is just one of many opportunities that we have at our fingertips.
Yes. And a couple of things that came to mind while you were talking about that is the balance piece. I used to hate that word. And hate is another word that I don't use often, but I would cringe, I would get angry whenever I would hear the word balance, because it was so not where my world was. And this was years and years ago, where I was starting to become even more aware. It had grown past that little seed in the center, and now I was starting to see, oh, wait a minute, there's a lot of stuff that's not congruent in my life. And that balance piece was a huge one, because I'm either up or down. Life has been, over the last 10 years or so, finding that balance, finding that middle part of the pendulum swing. And it has taken being aware, noticing when you're either on either end of the spectrum, and going, okay, so with me being pulled so far in fear, what is it that I am needing to bring into it to bring it into balance? And so it has become a mindfulness exercise. And coming into this blind with having any idea of what else you have talked about, I'm hoping that I'm not sticking my foot
Jennifer, I think I do this for you. I hope I do this for you, but you do this every single time for me, is no matter what you've heard or not heard, whatever you're saying is completely congruent with what we're talking about. And the interesting thing that you talked about is that a lot of things came up for me while you were talking, because I remember the flashback. we didn't realize at the time when we were teenagers and in our 20s that many parts of our brain were still in development, and that emotional maturity, it does not come necessarily with knowledge, but it actually comes with physical maturity, because our bodies are growing, and part of it is a very physical thing. And when you're a teenager and young, and you've got these raging hormones as well, there's a lot going on. You've got spurts of growth, you've got spurts of exhaustion, spurts of a lot of extremes. So many people don't want to hear that balance. When you're younger, you often don't want to, because balance is boring.
Right.
But when we realize that balance is not boring at all, but it's creating the place, it's like that fine-tuned instrument. Also, at that age, it's teenagers and 20s, that's the time when many athletes come into their own, musicians come into their own, they become stars, superstars in their arena. And they understand that zone. They understand that when they are tweaking and paying attention and clearing and being mindful of the instrument, whether the instrument is your body or whether the do you know what I just did? My computer is sitting on a grand piano. And I am patting my piano, and the only reason why I'm not playing it for you is because there's an office downstairs, and they don't want me playing during office hours. But it's funny, because I'm looking at this instrument, and I'm thinking that unless it is fine-tuned, unless it's balanced, we cannot actualize, we cannot realize the beautiful sound that it makes. So we don't need to make the goal the book or the big paycheck or whatever. That is a byproduct of who we are when we self-actualize ourselves.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. I actually had to remind myself here this last week to part of my journey with balance right now is that I tend to go very deep at an instant, to the bottom of the problem, to whatever, right down at the bottom, and work my way up so that I can create the solution. I realized that I was losing focus on the fact that I actually needed to bring people with me so that they understood the problem, so that they could actually appreciate and realize the end result. And it's like, well, no, I don't want to do that. And in not doing that, I was taking part of the journey away from other people. And that's another piece of that balance part. And we each have to walk our own path. Even though I may have the ability to make your path easier, I cannot walk that path for you.
Right.
I can walk
Absolutely.
next to you. I can point out, oh, wait a minute, that's a really deep hole. You can choose to walk in it. You can choose to walk around it. Just letting you know that one goes down about 13 feet. Up to you. Oh, see that grass over there? It's really soft. It's a great place to lay down. But I can't make the decisions on where you walk or even if you stay on the path. And I was trying to make those decisions for people. So,
well, you know, it's interesting because a lot of people, I think it has a lot to do with the way we communicate, is a lot of people feel that way. When somebody talks about their problem, and it even gets into a gender thing in some cases, you know, where they talk about the Mars and the Jupiter, whoever the genders are. sometimes when people are telling problems, they just want to be listened to, but most of us try to find a fix. We try to help. We try to fix it for them, and that's impossible. That's really hard. We have to just trust. And looking at it from the opposite point of view, and going again back to one of the precepts about when you have your clarity, support automatically starts to come in. It's trusting that, and it's trusting that whatever you put out there, because if you don't trust in your idea and you start asking the wrong people, I'll give you an example. 5-6 months ago, I had an idea for a website, and I thought it was a great idea, and I started to run with it. I had a really good mentor. I have a really good mentor, and I'm working with the small group of partners, and we're really moving on it. But I told other people about it. I told some people that are employees at corporations. I even told a couple of professors, a professor at Harvard, somebody else that is a professor at another college. And as soon as I was telling the people that were trained within a professional, people that seemed to really have their act together with money and everything else and prestige, as soon as I told them my idea, I literally saw eyes roll. They're like, is she really crazy? Does she really know it? She doesn't know that that's actually is not going to work. And here I am, 5 months later, making money with the site. The site is done really well. And if I had listened to the wrong people instead of trusting in my idea, now that's not to say that every idea is correct, but it's asking for the right context, looking for the places that are really going to, being open, I guess, being open so that you can see where the support is coming from and whether that support is worthy of taking notice.
Yes. Yeah, and there's a key issue there that I think everybody at some point in their life struggles with, and that is in trusting themselves. Trusting their intuition, trusting their voice against the less than enthusiastic support of others, because it triggers well, wait a minute, am I going to get thrown out of the tribe if they don't like what I'm doing? Is it okay to be different? And, from an early age, we're always taught to, do as you're told, follow those that are in charge, and when you start moving away from that and really starting to follow your own path, it is daunting. It is part of the journey in learning to trust your own intuition and putting all of those other things into balance against the light of your own intuition and your own guidance.
Exactly. Going back to earlier precepts about the thoughts and the tools. What are we most afraid of? We're most afraid of making a big, fat mistake.
Mm-hmm.
And we find any excuses, and even we can even find people that will support the idea that it's a bad idea.
Oh, we can find those by the thousands who will confirm our greatest fears that, yes, that's a stupid idea, don't do that one.
Exactly. So we have to be very careful about not suffering the fools. Really, if we're accepting advice, make sure that it's from people who have already got experience in whatever it is we want to do. If I'm still trying to imagine, and I'm sure that I'll find out more as we get more and more feedback from our series here about who is attracted. What kind of people are we attracting to the creative aspects? Again, there's that traditional feeling that it's creating a piece of art. But when we are completely in our present self and we are mindful of what we're doing and we are actually letting the creative force flow through us, anything that we touch is going to become a Midas touch.
Yes.
So really that model of fearlessness, don't suffer the fools. Don't suffer the fools that they're so fearful, saying that it's not going to work, and they're the same ones that can barely pay their rent. We need to listen to understand where the true power is coming from.
Yes. Yeah. And the part of learning how to do that without being aggressive or without putting up prickly barriers. It's just getting into that place of being able to accept people where they're at and understand that people are going to see things through their own wounds, through their own filters. And just to keep that in mind, if you're getting a piece of advice that just doesn't sit right, and it could very easily hit you in your gut, it's like, oh, that just, something about that doesn't feel right. Just remember, everybody's seeing it through their own stuff, and say, thank you, I appreciate your opinion. And then always go back to your own wisdom.
Absolutely. I'm going to go back now, which that falls right into how we do every time, bring up to the practice exercises.
Oh my God, isn't that funny?
Well, I'm really laughing at what you just said. Not laughing, laughing at the total synchronicity of what you just said, because unless you are doing these awareness exercises, and unless you're really making a solid effort to self-actualize, you won't be able to recognize that thought or that feeling. And if it doesn't sit right with you, sure, go with your gut feeling. We always should be going with our gut feeling on many things, because when we are in the moment, we're in our present balance, and it feels right, and we can feel it intuitively. And when we are not in that place, when we're allowing too many of the emotions and too many of the thoughts to get in the way, we're getting into the car and turning on the radio and flipping stations as we're driving in traffic, and we're just allowing ourselves to be scattered all over the place, we can't recognize whether or not it's right. We can't recognize whether what that person has said to us is right or not, because we get to where our cup is overflowing too much. Mm-hmm. So recognizing your emotions, treating them as children, with no judgment. I think earlier, last week, we talked about, yes, fear, I know you, I recognize you, and I smile at you, and I'll take good care of you. And it's the same thing with the excitement, to treat them, to just look at them, talk with them, put them aside, and know that they are taken care of. Tell me, Jennifer, you've done so much tapping and so much work with people. I'm really interested to know what you have to say about this one. We only have a few minutes left. I'll try to do this fast.
Okay.
But we always ask ourselves, well, where do you feel your center? And some people will say it's in the head and then in the heart. It's in all different places.
Yes.
You see somebody, that you're really attracted to, bam, your abdomen starts jumping, right? Or you see somebody that, or a pet or a person that you're completely in love with, and you feel this bursting in your heart. If you're thinking about, if you're working, if you're doing your homework or something, learning something, or trying to get through some project, you're in your head. It's always shifting all over the place.
Yes. Because our energy systems, it's not just one. No, granted, they're all connected. But as you know, we've got, and it depends on where you study it. I go with the 7 chakra system just because it really resonates with me. And I know that there's other energy bodies and other chakras outside of our system. The 7 chakra systems, there's different places within our body that have a different vibration, a different color, a different feel, a different purpose, a different point of reference. And depending on the circumstance, depending on the people around, depending on the colors, the smells, you're going to feel yourself in different areas of your body based on what's going on around you and what's getting triggered within you. Great opportunity to really, when you feel like you are off, and off what is normal for you. So when you're not feeling like your normal self, really start to notice where you are feeling the discord, where are things out of balance, because that gives you a clue as to what area of your body might be causing problems. For example, there are times when I will be learning something new, and all of a sudden, it's like my head shuts off, my third eye shuts down, because it is my connection to a broader self. And all of a sudden, I can't see that anymore because all I'm doing is focusing on this one thing. This one thing. And if it happens to be a very technical thing, whoa, the rest of the world shuts off. There is nothing but me.
Right, exactly. But when we're told it, I'm really glad you brought up chakras. I try to stay away. That was something else that I found myself going around, spinning around a little bit, because we tend to be really good at what we're really good at, but it becomes difficult when we're trying to communicate it to people that don't have the same vocabulary. And I tend to get very deep into different meditative jargon, and you use the chakras, and I use the other things, and I think we always help each other to find that balance, to come back to the basics. The chakras are a great thing to learn about, and I think that you do. Did you say you have a program, a course that you're giving on the chakras, Jennifer?
Yes, and it's a very basic course, not only where they are, but how do they impact your everyday life. It's not a very woo-woo class. It's very down-to-earth, talking about where they're located in your body, where you can start to notice where your own energy system is out of balance by what you're seeing in the world around you and how you're feeling, and how it actually affects everything that you do, whether you realize it or not.
And those are the ones that count the most, the ones that are basic, that keep us centered, that help us to build that foundation so that we can become the total we that we want to be.
Yes.
If it does get woo-woo to everything, there's nothing wrong with that, but just keep in mind that kind of intense energy can bring an intense negative energy too, because everything needs to be balanced. When you are totally centered, it doesn't matter. You can always remain at the center. You may be thinking about things that are going on in the head, but you can still stay centered wherever your center is, if it is in your solar plexus or whatever. You never miss your center. You always use your center to go back to ground zero. You can be very much, you can feel those bursts of heartbreak or heart ecstasy, but still bring yourself back to center, where all of these things, not just the emotions and the thoughts, but everything that we feel, everything that permeates us, becomes a tool.
Yes. Yep. So when I say centered, I mean centered, not centered. So it's in alignment, everything working the way that it's supposed to, as clear a channel as possible. If you want to talk center, it's third chakra, solar plexus, our power center. And yes, and it's that and everything up and down from that, because they all are interconnected and they all talk together. Anyway.
Awesome. Now that's awesome. And I think we did it. My grandfather clock is striking 4 there. I don't know if you can hear it, but we did the hour.
Excellent.
So thank you very much, everyone. And again, questions or comments, please leave them below, and in sizes. We want to hear about your transformations and your aha moments. Thank you, Jennifer.
Yes.
Mahalo.
Awesome. Thank you, Michaela.
Namaste.
Bye.